Roger, are you in the jungle?
No, this is one of my pictures from out in Pacific Coast.
I see somebody who I think's newer here, Joette. I used to work with her. If that's the right person.
It's me. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Joette. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Welcome to the group.
Thanks.
Is this your first visit?
Yeah, I'm just going to be a stalker today. I'm a new photographer, so I'm going to see if I can get some tips and hints and stuff like that.
No, we're full of it.
Good or bad, right?
Yeah. Well, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Thanks.
So are you brand new to photography or
Pretty much. My husband bought me a little Canon EOS M50.
Okay.
And we do a lot of camping. So most of my pictures are of nature, waterfalls and hiking and stuff like that.
Well, that's a good camera to get started and learn the business.
Yeah, it seems pretty easy. I bought a filter for it. Art's camera talked me into a filter. So I've been playing with it.
All right.
Are you still biking, Joette?
No, we sold the motorcycles and bought a camper. So now we're old fart campers now instead of hot biker chicks,
Hey, Joe, you can
Get started?
start. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's start the evening off and welcome any new guests. And I think we just met one. So, Gillette, are you, say, primarily a nature photographer?
Yeah.
One of the things we do, and not too far down the line, is show and tell. We would welcome you to show some of your pictures, good or bad, and we'll try to be nice and offer any unique criticism if we can. And
Okay.
matter of fact, we're probably looking for volunteers for the balance of the year, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I hope everyone had a great series of holidays. Seems we got a little bit of snow after Christmas, but we'll take what we can get. I know my grandson was awfully excited about that. We had a group of people that showed up in Cedarburg about a month ago now for one of the outings, and that generated quite a few really nice pictures. And I think most of those have been posted on our Facebook page. And if you haven't seen them, please go there and see what some of the folks pulled off that evening. It was rather cold and chilly for some of us, but those that did show up, I think, had a pretty good time with it all. Some of the news, a few reminders coming up before too long. We have an all-member show later this year. It's called Community Spotlight. It's probably a good time to maybe get out if you're out and about, find one of our little neighbors, towns or whatever, and see if we can pick up some information about those little towns and villages or the community you live in. And be prepared a little bit later this year to submit those, and we'll have a slideshow representing some of our nearby neighbors or your communities. I've noticed that in the newsletter, we have a seminar coming up in March by Lewis Katz, Perspective and Perception, the Art of Seeing. I think that's going to be at our March meeting. Jeff, can you jump in and tell us about this, Mr. Katz, about that upcoming program and what we're likely to see?
I don't have much more than what we have in the newsletter.
Okay.
He was somebody that sent us an email saying he'd be happy to do a talk, and we agreed to bring him on.
Okay.
He will join us at our regular meeting, so it won't be anything different.
So that will be
So-
the program for the March meeting, am I correct?
Right, right.
Okay, great.
So,
All right.
so that, yeah, but that's about as much as I know about him. He has some nice photography, so I think we'll enjoy him.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we'll be working on a couple other people for later in that month.
I know a lot of people are technically good with their cameras, but some of us do struggle occasionally with the art of seeing what we're really taking and why we're taking that picture. So that might be something that I think will be rather beneficial for some of us.
Yeah.
Speaking of field trips mentioned a minute ago, we've got a field trip, I believe, for late January, early February. Ken and Jane, I think, are going to be leading that. It's a field trip to Port Washington. And if it's like anything in the past, you get over there and hope for big wind and some mighty nice pictures off of the lake. Ken or Jane, you want to jump in and say a little bit more about what we're going to be expecting on that event?
Well, the date is always up in the air depending on weather.
Right.
You know, for early sunrise, the best conditions are going to be cold and some sun. I mean, this last weekend it was cold, but it was very gloomy.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would make for outstanding photos. We want to see the steam or fog coming off the lake and the sun coming up behind the lighthouse. So, you know, I'm just trusting that we can get an email out when conditions appear conducive and that we can get a group to go.
Do you typically do it on a Saturday or somewhere in that neighborhood? Or?
Well, we try for a weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, we do try for a weekend. There are still some workers in the group that would love to come.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody who, you know, I don't know, Jeff or Ellen, whoever would be able to send out group emails, who should we contact when we want to schedule a date? Because some of us are free most mornings.
Yeah.
If we get
Either
up.
one of us will work. I can
Okay.
send it all out if I need to. If you
Okay.
guys,
I
or
can
Ken,
be-
let me know.
I can be a backup also. Joe, I hope you do address that we do need people for the show and tell. We've got February lockdown, but we won't be able to discuss this at our meeting next week anyway, but I'm sorry, didn't mean to step on your notes.
I
Go
got the
ahead.
notes. I'm ready to go. We'll talk about it shortly.
Okay.
All right. Now, well, let's just go on and talk about it now. Show and tell. Tonight, myself and Steve Weingarth will be presenting. In February, we have Jeff Ewing and Tony Schulis. I don't think we have anything after that. So March, April, May, June, and July, we're going to need 2 volunteers for each one of those months. I am ready to write something down if anybody wants to jump in and volunteer for any of those particular months. Jesse, what month? Jesse, I think I saw you raise your hand.
Yes, I'll do
What
March.
month would you like?
March.
March?
Yep.
You're all right. Anyone else? Let me see. Okay, there's Brian. What month?
March,
You say March?
yeah, if that's still open.
Okay, that's done. How about April?
I'll do May.
Who did May? Okay, that's who
Sure.
was that? I heard
I'll
the
do
voice. I
May.
didn't see it.
Roger.
Roger. Roger's in May. Is
And this is Linnea. I would do April.
that Lenny? What month?
Linnea. Yes. April?
April?
Mhm.
Did I have another one for April?
It might have been me, Joe, because we had talked a little bit before.
Okay. I've got one May. How about one more for May?
I'll do a May.
Who we got? Bernard?
That was
Yeah.
Bernard. Paul.
And then June and July.
Do we do July with show and tell?
Well, I think you're right. We don't. June.
Yeah.
Looks like
Who
Jim
else?
raised his hand.
Who was it?
Jim Karofsky and Patty are raising their hands.
So
for
Patty and Ken
Jim Karofsky.
Kareski. Okay. Okay. Ellen, are you writing all these down as well?
Yes, I am. Who do you have? I only have one for April. I have Linnea.
Yeah, I only have one for April as well.
Did Bernard Hall do April too?
I thought he was May.
He was May.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do May.
Ken,
Pat?
Joe, I'll do April.
Okay,
Okay.
Pat.
Pat
All right.
Pat Lynch.
Pat Lynch.
Got him. Whoa, that was easy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Makes
Good
my
night.
job easier. Yep.
Ellen, I didn't see you volunteer.
I've got this thing called a newsletter, which has been taking up a
Does
little
that take
bit
a lot
more
of time?
my time. Yeah.
Diplomatic
But-
immunity.
Well, while you mentioned it, I just want to keep mentioning the unbelievable job you do with that newsletter. It is. Without that, I don't know what we'd do to keep track of things. All right.
Joe, while we're talking about the newsletter, let me put something up that I've
All
got.
right.
Just a minute. I wasn't quite ready for it, but I can do it.
Yeah, it was really nice to see the pictures of Cedarburg at night. I mean, there were some really awesome pictures.
Dude.
And it's nice with their calendar too, in that, they see future, events coming up.
But
I think we
please,
need to, if we can, if you have events or things that you want to share on that calendar, be sure to get those to Ellen. What do we got here?
This just came from PSA to me a couple of days ago. I think we mentioned it before, but the newsletter won the honorable mention for the small clubs division. And so, Ellen, I'll be getting that in the mail to you soon. They just got
Thank
it to
you.
me.
So why am I proofreading this?
I don't
Why do
know.
I feel I have to? I feel I have to proofread everything I see on the screen. It's
Yeah.
a nightmare for me once in a while. So
Well, whatever you do and how you do it well.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you. But keep sending the pictures because that's good. And visit the website because I have a tendency to edit the photos to see fit once in a while because I'd like to get as many in as I can. But I do take some liberties and I do a lot of heavy cropping once in a while. I have been learning that so well through these programs here. Crop.
Yeah. And PSA loves photos in their newsletters. So
Yeah.
it
Well, I think
may
we've
get
been
her to
getting,
move up another notch.
I think we've been getting quite a few tours, so let's keep them coming.
All right.
Jeff, don't we have a digital forum meeting coming up here January 22nd?
January 22nd, we have digital forum. So that's coming up. I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about yet. I'm
All right.
still, I got the feeling it might be on websites just because that subject's been popping up a little bit lately. So we might talk about different websites and how to create them and doing that. We do have a couple speakers coming up in the near future, so I'll keep that quiet until I get them all locked in.
We'll get the information to Ellen and she'll put it in the newsletter, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that some of you may have already gotten is that we have finally got everything locked down and ready to go for our March seminar for WACO, and that's going to be Jason Odell. Let me just.
It's on the 5th of March, I believe.
Right, the 5th of March. Whoops, I almost ended our meeting. That wouldn't be good. So Jason Odell, 5th of March, $15 if you register now, or $20 after February 11th. Jason does some really interesting photos. It's on the website if you want to take a look at them, but he will be talking about fine art photography and long exposure photography. So it will be pretty much the same type of setup as last year, where it'll be an hour worth of a program and then a half hour of Q&A. Then we'll have a short break, and then we will do another hour with the long exposure and then Q&A, and that will be the end of the day. I will drop a link to registering in the chat here for people. But I think almost everybody should have probably, if you've gone before to any of our WACO ones, you should have gotten an email.
We did.
But we're getting it, just popped out the other day. So.
Well, I think that should be a pretty good one. Looking forward to it. And we've done show and tell. We have two big events this evening. Tips and hints will be backup by Jeff, and the program will be Monochrome Conversions, and we will get to those shortly. I would like to proceed with having our show and tell, and I'd like to call on Steve to do his presentation, and after that I will do mine. Steve, are you ready? Hello.
I think he's working on it.
Ran for the hills. There we go.
So are you seeing my screen?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. In April 1st, 2020, I retired. And so we planned a trip to Colorado in June of 2020. But I'm going to talk about the trip we actually did in July of 2021, because we obviously didn't get there in June of 2020. So my wife and I drove out to Colorado. We started out in the Boulder area. My daughter lives there, perilously close to those fires. In fact, she actually got evacuated last week, but fortunately her place was not destroyed. I understand the hotel we stayed in did get destroyed in the fire. So, and that was about 2 miles from where my daughter lives. So we started out, we went up to Mount Evans. Actually, we technically didn't get a pass. You had to have passes to go anywhere. We got a pass to go to Summit Lake, which is almost to the peak of Mount Evans. So this is a picture of Summit Lake on the morning we went up there. And then this was another view where I played around with some monochrome conversion, and I'm really interested to see what Jeff might teach me about how to do this better later on. But this is also from the Summit Lake area. We did sneak into the peak, even though we didn't have a pass. There was a parking spot, so we spent a few minutes up at the top. Then outside of Boulder, there's an area called the Flatirons. This is still kind of in, I don't even think it's quite to the foothills of the Rockies, but it's just a kind of a formation that occurred, a couple of years ago or more, probably millions of years ago. So there's all these kind of slanted peaks that are popping out of the prairie. And this is very, very close to where the wildfire or the fires were last week. Then here's a view of one of the peaks up close a little bit. Interesting, I think, to see the coloration in the rocks, you know, from the different sediment layers they were formed from. Then we headed up to Estes Park and spent a week up there. This is a place called St. Catherine's Cathedral on the Rocks, just south of Estes Park a little bit. We actually stopped there on our drive up, and it was the afternoon, so we came back the next morning earlier to get a little bit of morning sunlight shining on the front of the building better. In the afternoon, it was more shining on the back of the building. So it's kind of an interesting little place. Then it was difficult to get into Rocky Mountain National Park. You had to have a reservation. So we decided early on, rather than fight with getting reservations, we would set up a couple of guided tours. The first tour we did was with a photographer. So we met him at 5 a.m., headed into the park. He got us into places we probably wouldn't have been able to get to because it was very difficult to get reservations, and took pictures of the sunrise as it was peeking up over the mountains and just starting to light up the mountains to the east. And we wanted to go to Sprague Lake, which is an iconic place to take a sunrise picture when it's calm. But we drove past it, he looked at it, said, we'll come back later because it was too windy. You weren't going to get a really great reflection from here. Also a great place to see moose, except for the morning we showed up, there was a guy on a paddleboard floating around, and a couple of moose entered the lake and then quickly left. They weren't going to put up with this guy on a paddleboard. So that was kind of a little bit disappointing. He took us to a couple of other spots just to take some pictures, some landscape pictures, places where we could pull off the road and get a nice view. And then this was the last picture we took with him, or the last stop we made. So we spent about a half a day with him. It was an enjoyable morning. And we got to places we'd have never gotten to without his help. So then we took a second trip into Rocky Mountain National Park. It was a bus tour in theory, only we all drove our own cars and had walkie-talkies, and the guy narrated as we were driving. I had to cut back on my pictures, so I didn't include anything from there. But our final day we spent in Estes Park, and we had gone here the day before. This is the Stanley Hotel, and it's got a little fame. Stanley was the guy that invented, or his company made the Stanley steamer, not the carpet cleaning company, but the actual steam vehicles. He made some of his money from that. Him and his identical twin brother formed several companies. Probably of interest to this group might be the Stanley Dry Plate Company. They had perfected a manufacturing process to make dry negative plates instead of the wet plates that photographers were using at the time. And if anybody wanted their own dry plate, they had to make it at home. I mean, basically, until he created this process where they could crank out one plate a second. So it was a pretty efficient process. He ended up selling it to a guy named George Eastman, who was running the Kodak company at the time. George shut down the Stanley company, but he took the process and used it for Kodak's production. So there's a kind of a nice connection to photography. This is also has some connections to the movie, the Stephen King story, The Shining. There's a story that Stephen King spent a night here and had a nightmare, which inspired him to write the story. A lot of people think the movie was shot at this hotel. It actually wasn't. It was shot at a hotel in Oregon, but there was a TV series that was shot at this hotel. So that's kind of the modern variety of this hotel, I guess. It's a very interesting place. It's an interesting tour. We takes about an hour. So I think that's what I've got for tonight. I had to take about 50 pictures and whittle it down to 10. So when we get the chance to do the extended version, I'll show the rest of them.
All right. There we go. So let me share my screen and bring up a few things here. Uh-oh. Don't like this. Never seen this one before.
It's probably asking you permission to be able to share.
Okay, there we go.
You'll have to go into preferences and
I had it here a minute ago. That's Christmas. All right, these will be mine. I know winter 2022 is coming up. But I said, well, I'll show a few from past years. So that's what I'm going to do this evening. These are some I've taken over the last couple of years. That's a patio outside of my window.
Joe, you're not sharing yet.
I'm not sharing. Well,
Nope.
Let me get back then. I thought I was there. Open system preferences. Is it not sharing?
Nope. It's asking you to open up system preferences, isn't it?
I did that.
Okay, you need to open up system preferences, go to security and privacy.
Well, I thought I did that. Okay, open system preferences. Well,
Go to security and privacy.
yeah, it comes back to you. Maybe I got to go to advanced.
Oh, I thought, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen this one before. Are you seeing
you
anything?
Are you in security and privacy? No.
No, I'm
We're
not.
just-
It's not coming
Okay,
in there.
We need you to go into preferences on your computer itself.
All right.
It's that big gearbox.
Yeah, I know what it looks like.
Yeah. And then go to security and privacy.
All right, Zoom, check Zoom. Got it.
And then go under privacy.
I'm there.
Okay.
I see Zoom, but it won't let me do anything.
Yeah, you need to unlock the padlock
There we
in the
go.
bottom corner and give it full disk access. And let's see. I gotta always check because I never remember the other one. Accessibility and accessibility.
Sorry, guys. What would we do without Jeff?
Everybody with a new Mac computer gets to go through this at least once.
All right, here we go.
Now it should work, I believe.
I've checked Zoom. Let me
and
lock
then
it up again.
and then relock the padlock.
All right. Close it out.
Yeah,
Right.
and let's hope it works.
Now let's get back to where you are. Nope, nope, nope.
Is it still asking to go there?
Yeah, I'm hitting the share screen. Then I get a black box here with slides, portion of screen, a computer audio, video.
Okay, you need to choose that first screen.
All right.
And hit share.
Nope.
Jeff, I will say I had to go through this with my laptop and it actually made me restart the laptop. I don't know if
Shouldn't
that's
have to
always the case. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Does he have to log in and out of a Zoom meeting?
Sometimes you do have to restart
Yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
might have, Joe, you might have to restart Zoom.
All right,
Yeah.
let me leave you guys. I'll be back momentarily.
Ken, Sagatuck is a nice little town. It reminds me of Cedarburg. You might be able to get some nice pictures there too.
Where is that?
That's just south of Holland, Michigan. It's about 13 miles south of Holland. It's about where Grand Haven is. I believe it's about a 45 minutes south where you are.
What's the name of the town?
It's called Sagatuck. It's also called Douglas, and that it's on Lake Michigan. There's a lake that comes in like a little river that goes into the Kalamazoo Lake. But Sagatuck is nice. If you Google it under Google Maps, you'll see it south of where you are.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Joe, now we see your screen. Can we hear you? That's the trick.
Okay,
Although, Joe, you're
unmute.
muted. Now
Got it.
you're okay.
Can you see the round patio now?
Yep, now we can.
Jeff, thank you for your assistance, as always. I was trying to say, we have winter 2022 coming up as our topic and challenge for next month. So I'm trying to get ahead of the curve and use some of these that I've had from previous years. So let me just go through a few of these. That's a patio looking out of one of our bedroom windows. That's a little bit of snow looking through a ball, of course. Just a little bit of a wind and snowy day last year. Love picnic tables, even when they're not being used. Now, just down the road, a couple of old barns and fences. Little sunset. I hate to say it, but I do a lot of my wintertime photography out of car windows, and it works rather well. I have a herd that loves to hang around my place in the wintertime. I think a year or so ago, I had 3 groups of like 5 that showed up for a powwow, and they were together for like 5 minutes. Then they all went in their different direction. But these 3 just keep showing up every other day or so. I think they know me a little bit too. That's the Cedarburg Mill, right downtown. That's a bridge at right at Cedar Creek, a little park. Some more picnic tables. A pile of bricks and a plastic container. Stop sharing. Back to normal, if there is such a thing. Now, one of the other topics was for the holidays, I didn't have many people submit pictures this year, but let me share that screen, and there's only 4 or 5 of us. If you don't mind, I'll go through that if I can find it. 1 second. Move this out of the way. Okay, can you see this one?
Yep.
Okay. The first one is mine. The second one is mine. The third one is mine. And those of us that do have cats, this is a memory. He passed on about a month ago. I think this one is Bernard Hall, a fellow cat lover, I believe. This is Brian's Latimus. That's from the Cedarburg adventure. This one's Brian's as well. This is mine from a nearby apple orchard. Ken Bowman. Poor Santa, only one reindeer. And the next one, 5 are from Jesse. All right, let me stop sharing. If you'll take a look in the newsletter calendar, there's a date toward the end of the month. I'd love to have your pictures for the winter 2020 so I can put together the show for next month. And I'd like to have more than just 3 or 4 people presenting, if possible. Thank you. Okay, I think I'm done. All right. Jeff, that's all I've got on that. You want to take it from here?
Sure.
I think we've got the tips and hints. I think, Jeff, we'll let you take that away. I think it's called backup.
Yeah. Okay, going to talk about backup and what you need to do for that. It's an important thing to think about every year, all the time. I have so many people that I know about that call me after they lose all their images. So I'm going to go through some of this a little quick in the very beginning because this is usually just talks about Lightroom file storage and the workflow, but it includes all the backup info. So all I've got to do is make sure that I'm on that. So with Lightroom or any program, basically, you need to take the camera and the memory cards and download them. I download mine right to the desktop first before I import them into Lightroom, but a person can just import them right into whatever program you're going to use right off the bat. So you can do either way, right to the desktop, or just even copy them right over into your primary photo file if that's how you do some of that. Now, with Lightroom, one thing that they do is you can have, if you have a second hard drive attached, when you import images into Lightroom, it will automatically back it up onto another hard drive. All you need to do is check one box in Lightroom. What I do besides that is when I import it into my primary photo file, I use a program called Super Duper, or and that's just a Mac only program, or the other one that's both Mac and Windows is GoodSync. And that basically copies over whatever's in the primary photo hard drive into a backup. So I have at least one backup. I then have a second backup that's off-site that I update once a month. And I need to get my January one going, so I'm already late this year. But and I happen to use two different programs. I use GoodSync to do that second one, just because I want to make sure that if one doesn't work right, the other one does. So that actually gives me 3 copies of my photo files. Then I have a 4th copy that I do up into the cloud, and I use Backblaze. Backblaze is a great cloud storage setup. It will store unlimited amounts of data for $7 a month or $70 a year if you subscribe for a whole year. The only trouble with it, it's super slow. It will take probably a month to back up 5 terabytes worth of storage if you have that much. I've got one customer that is using it right now, and he has 20 terabytes, and it's been running 3 months, and he's got about 5 terabytes up. So depending on your upload speed of your internet can really determine how fast Backblaze works. But once it gets caught up, it works pretty well. Now, Super Duper, if you have a Mac, is a super simple program to use. You can schedule it to back up every evening. That's what I do, is I have it set up for like 2 in the morning when I know I'm not using the computer. And what it will do is it will back up one drive to the other and will make them identical. Now, all it really does is it takes a look at the first drive and sees what's changed, and then it will just do whatever has changed and put that on the second drive. So it just keeps it identical all the time. The nice part is it's inexpensive at $28. One thing that it is limited in is it only does one hard drive to another hard drive. So if you're not wanting to clone the whole drive over, then Super Duper doesn't work too well. GoodSync, which works actually on Mac and Windows, is a little harder to use, but will copy both individual files or the whole drive. Once you understand the way it works, and it walks you through it pretty simply, you just basically pick whatever folder you want to copy on the first drive and make sure you have that same folder on this other drive. You copy right to it, you can set up a schedule, and it does it all automatically for you as well. Actually, both of them, you can set up multiple schedules. So it could, if you do a lot of photos, then you can have it done multiple times during a day. I find that I feel pretty safe in having it do it at 2 o'clock in the morning when I need it. GoodSync is a subscription one. They used to be standalone, but now it's a subscription based, and it's $30 a year. But you can do up to 5 different computers with that. So if you have multiple computers, it can work well for you. Backblaze is also fairly simple once you get it set up. Having cloud-based, it's always there for you. You don't have to worry about your hard drives not working. It's if something happens to the house and the house would happen to burn down, you have all this stuff backed up to the cloud. At $70 a year, it's inexpensive. It will continuously back up unless you're actually using the computer for anything heavy on the internet, and then it will slowly throttle itself back. And then when you're not doing anything, then it goes back up to full speed. It's easy to restore from it. You can even, if you lose everything, you can have them send you a hard drive with all the files on it that you can then transfer to your hard drive and then send their hard drive back. It's unlimited storage, which works nice. So I've been real happy with Backblaze, and Backblaze works better for Mac computers as well as Windows. The other one that some people know about is Carbonite. And Carbonite works real nice with Windows computers, but it has a lot of problems with Mac. So I generally don't recommend Carbonite as much as Mac. The important part is to have at least 3 backups. 2 backups is not enough. I used to have 1 backup where it was just cloned to the one. And every now and then, especially for me out in the country, I've had my power pole struck by lightning. It's come down and it's blown out both hard drives. And I've had to go to my 3rd offsite hard drive that isn't connected all the time. I did lose a few weeks worth of data, but fortunately I was able to pull a lot back. And it's a lot better having something than losing everything, because once you lose everything, and I've had 2-3 customers now where they have lost all their photo files because they didn't have any of it backed up. So 2 or 3 copies is good. If you don't have a lot with Mac, you do have Time Machine, and that can back up everything, and that does incremental backups. But if you have, like most of us do, 3, 4, 5 terabytes worth of files, Time Machine just is a little too klutzy. You would need a pretty big hard drive to be able to get the backup done. So you got Super Duper, Good Sync, Backblaze. I can drop, if somebody is interested in it, I will put this link into the chat later. This will get you a free month worth of Backblaze if you want to try it out and use it. Like I said, it works pretty well. Now, I've had people ask me about hard drives and which ones to use, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about different options with hard drives. Most of these are consumer hard drives, but you sort of have 3 choices depending on the amount of money you'd like to spend. The one that I recommend the most, depending on how much you have to back up, I use Seagate hard drives that I pick up at Costco. I wait for them to go on sale for $120 for an 8 terabyte hard drive. It's the desktop hard drive. What's nice with the desktop is it plugs into the wall, and then you have the USB cord that plugs into the computer. The other one that you can go to is a portable hard drive. These are great if you're going to want to travel with it, but you have a limitation in that they use the bus power in your computer to power the hard drive. So you can only generally run 1 or 2 of these hard drives at a time, and then the bus power will run out. And so you either need to do multiple USB hubs that have power in them, or connect them to 2 different buses on the computer. Sometimes you can do that on one side of your computer and then the other. The other way, if you have a lot of stuff, is to go to a RAID box, which is a redundant array of inexpensive disks. I actually use 2 of these 8-bay ones. And what's nice about that is I use, I think it's RAID 0, where I have each of these are 12 terabyte drives. Some are smaller, but my main one is a 12 terabyte drive, and then it automatically backs it up on the second drive. And then I have another set that I believe are 8 terabyte each, and that backs up all my photo files. I'm into a lot of video these days, so I'm starting to fill up the first box and the second box, because I do everything in pairs. So this is an 8-bay box, so I actually have 4 sets of drives that I have backed up. It's nice because it's all powered off of the outlet, and I can swap them out pretty easily. Oh, wrong direction. So the Costco one is 8 terabytes again, powered out of your outlet. You can get them anywhere from 4 to 8 terabytes. There are a bunch of other brands, Seagate, Western Digital, Toshiba. I even believe SanDisk. It's bigger, it stays cool. One of the biggest problems with hard drives is heat. You want to keep them sort of cooled down. It's not portable. It's not meant to be moved around, but it does sit on your desk, and you just need to either plug it right into the computer or into a USB hub. And it uses 3.5-inch drives, so it's a little bigger machine. The portable ones are using a 2.5-inch drive. They're usually, the capacity is only 1 to 5 terabytes. But the nice part is it's designed to be portable, so you can carry it with. I use a couple of these when I travel, and then I transfer the data over. The biggest problem with these is that you're limited to a certain number of them being plugged into your USB outlet. You get too many of them, you'll start having a problem where they lose connection. And if you start to notice that you see one dropping out, it's because there's not enough power to run all of them, and it drops one out to power the other one. So that can be a problem. To get to the fanciest, you can go to the RAID, which is a nice way to get a whole ton of storage. Although I got to admit, the one that I have, which does about right now, about 30 terabytes of data with all the drives, which only gets me about 16 terabytes of actual use, ran me about $2,500. So it's not a cheap thing, but for me, where I'm got over 300,000 images and over 16 terabytes worth of data, it has a lot of benefits for me. So I just thought I'd mention it. I don't expect a lot of people using them. I think there's probably maybe a couple, but not
Jeff?
too many. Yep.
What brand is that?
That one is made by OWC, which is MacSales.com. They make a nice set of them. They make both a 4-bay and an 8-bay. Actually, they make a 2, 4, and 8-bay unit. So you can get them in different sizes, and they're expandable. So I use a lot of MacSales because they make good quality equipment and they have good quality hard drives available.
Jeff,
And
do
they
you
were
connect? Sorry,
Yep.
I was just gonna say, do you connect to those via USB, or because that's not a NAS, right?
These are Thunderbolt 3 and 4.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I can actually get pretty high rates. And the nice part is I put in a couple solid state ones for my video stuff, and I get some pretty fast speeds with it. So you can do both 2.5-inch solid state drives, you can do 3.5-inch drives, and you can do 2.5 spinning drives. So it's a nice box. It's got a fan built in. You can buy it with or without the RAID software. So I'm happy with it. I ended up with 2 because I moved my office to my home, and I had one for my home and one for my office. And my office, I'm just not using my computers there anymore. So I've got them both set up. One set up for video, the other one set up for photo. So I get the best of both worlds. No, wrong way. The other thing I thought I'd talk about a little bit is USB hubs and docks. With the new computers these days, they seem to be not supplying as many ports on your computers. So you need to use a hub. And you've got 2 choices. You have a hub, which is this top one here, which generally will have a bunch of plugins. You can get from 4 to 7 to 10. Although I found that most of the drivers on the computer really can only handle 4 plugins at one time. If you go and fill them all up, you can run into problems. I have a 10-port one that will only run 4 to 7 at a crack, mainly because it runs out of power. And any hub that you get, you should make sure it has a power supply for it. Because a lot of these hard drives need power, the thumb drives need power. So you want to have power to these units. You can connect, like I said, multiple. You need, it's good to have a power plug-in into the wall. If you have 2 hard drives that are not self-powered, that's about all you can plug into one of these hubs, even when they're powered. I found as soon as you put 3, it starts to get a little funky. But it's a great way to expand the ports. You can add a hub, and I've actually added hubs to a hub, but you don't want to daisy chain those out too far. The good part with a hub is that they're $20 to $100, so they're not that expensive. What I'm using is a dock, which OWC makes these, and they're both Thunderbolt 3 and 4. And what it does is it breaks it down into a couple of USB 3 plugins, Ethernet plugin, Thunderbolt 3 or 4 plugin. This goes to your computer, and this will add an extra monitor. And then it has another USB 3 on the front, and another USB, I don't know if that's a Thunderbolt or maybe the USB 3 newer one that looks like a Thunderbolt. Yeah. I'd love to shoot the guy that decided that we can use USB 3 with the same Thunderbolt design as a Thunderbolt cable. So, but these docks run $300 or so, and OWC makes a bunch of them. They have a couple that are just all Thunderbolts, so that if you wanted to do multiple monitors, it breaks it out so you can do multiple monitors. This one uses the a different monitor plug-in here, which you can then convert to HDMI, so that you can run 2. That's how I'm running 2 monitors here. What's nice is these come with an 85-watt power source, so it gives you plenty of voltage to all the hubs or all the USB outlets. And what's nice is I plug in one cord to my laptop, and it goes to this, and then everything else is plugged into here. So all I have to do is unplug just one or two cables. So I know all of our desks probably look as bad as mine. I was going to take a photo of mine, and I decided I didn't want to show everybody my messy cables floating all over the place because I have so many different things plugged in. But the dock makes it a little bit easier. I've got one dock and actually one USB hub for each of my computers here, and that's able to power everything plus my RAID box now. So the one thing to remember is it is not if a hard drive will fail, but when, and they will fail. Spinning hard drives, you can recover data if you have to. But there is a company out in California that will recover data for you at about $2,000 to $5,000, depending on the size of your hard drive. SSD drives, when they crash, you're just plain out of luck. So, and most of our new computers are all being run off of SSDs. So you definitely want to have a backup because there just is no way to be able to recover from that. So that's about what I've got on backups. Any questions?
Yeah, Jeff, I have a question.
Sure.
You're saying that drives will fail. It's not a question of if, but when. So do you just replace your hard drives every so many years, or?
Yeah, about every 3 years. 3 to 4 years. That's what Seagate actually warranties their drives for. The RAID box is sort of nice for me now because it actually monitors the health of the box, of each drive, and starts to warn me when a drive is going to go out. So we'll see how well that works. I've only been running them for about 8 months, but it's so far everything's working okay.
What do you do with the old drives?
Backblaze. I was just gonna say Backblaze also says 3 to 5 years. They analyze. I just looked it up again. 25,000 different running hard drives to figure out like the average lifespan.
Do you replace yours, Ian, every so many years?
Yeah, I actually just I just replaced all my stuff. I just bought a 4-bay NAS, which is very similar to the RAID that Jeff showed, except it's on my network, so I can get to it remotely if I want to.
Which RAID is that, Ian?
That I bought a Synology 920 plus was the one that I bought, but they have a whole line of them. They have 2 drive ones and 4 drive ones.
That seems to be a pretty good brand. What I do for my backup is I'm kind of paranoid. I always keep my external hard drives unplugged, and the only time I back up my stuff is when I plug it in, because I think if you run your hard drives nonstop, I mean, I guess it goes into a sleep mode, but I think it's better that you don't have it always plugged in. But then it's kind of becomes an inconvenient, because let's say if you have it scheduled for every day at 2 o'clock in the morning, or 2 o'clock in the morning, it does an automatic backup. Well, you can't do an automatic backup if you don't have it plugged in.
Here's a stack of all my hard drives from my old NAS.
I've
Can
got
I
over
ask
20.
a really stupid question?
No stupid questions.
Yeah.
No
It's all
stupid
good.
question.
No, there is no stupid questions. There's
Oh
always
yeah,
good questions.
there are, and I'm gonna ask one. So tell me, what is Thunderbolt? Does your actual main computer have to be equipped to manage Thunderbolt?
No, it depends on the age of the computer. Thunderbolt is what Apple uses for their connections. And I believe Windows is slowly starting to go to it.
There's
but
a
it
lot of
takes a
PCs with it.
special cable for it that has a little lightning bolt on it.
But
Is it
okay,
Yes,
so
it's also called a USB 4, is it not?
Technically that's different.
It's
you
different,
you
yeah.
can go down to a very long rabbit hole of the difference between Thunderbolt, USB 3.1, USB 4, different versions of Thunderbolt. There are a lot of there. I just actually listened to a podcast on Thunderbolt and USB-C, a tech blog that discussed it and how we've gotten to where we are and how it keeps changing. And
Yeah.
It's basically a faster transfer of, information.
Right.
it's one of the
yeah,
fastest ones out there.
Yeah. And USB-C and Thunderbolt look identical. The only difference between the two cables is the speed of transfer and the little Thunderbolt that they put on the cable, on the Thunderbolt cables, compared to the USB-C, which I believe is like a quarter the speed of Thunderbolt 3. And then you got Thunderbolt 4, which is the new one out. I've just started buying all Thunderbolt cables just so I don't get mixed up anymore and spend the extra money on the stupid cables. But
I was just gonna say that's the difference is the cost in the cables. Thunderbolt cables.
Yeah.
A little premium.
Yeah, 4-foot Thunderbolt cable costs me $50.
Yeah.
Where a 4-foot USB-C cable will cost you about $10 or $15, depending on the brand.
But new Apple products seem to have the USB 3, and not a lot of people know that at first when they get like a new phone or something. So
Apple doesn't make this easy either because their iPad, a lot of their iPads now use USB-C, but the phones still use Lightning. And then the watch uses its own little proprietary adapter thing with a USB-A adapter on the end. Yeah, Apple is all over the place on their
and then their
cables.
computers themselves are all using Thunderbolt.
Mostly,
So,
not the new ones. I have HDMI cables now, Jeff.
So I guess
it does have HDMI.
This still leaves me confused. So, I mean, my computer's like 2 years old, and I have all these USB ports on it, and I have a little hub. I have a USB hub. But if I bought a hub that said it had Thunderbolt, would I even be able to connect it to my computer?
Yeah, you could connect it to your computer, but you wouldn't get the speeds that it can produce.
You'll get quick, but not the maximum speeds.
Yeah. Because it all depends on what connectors are on your computer itself. And most of those are on Windows, it's USB-C. I don't believe they're using Thunderbolt at all.
I have a Thunderbolt,
but not by me. It's very limited. And USB-C typically runs at 3.1 speeds, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So it's a quick connection. It's just Thunderbolt happens to be like one of the fastest connections right now. It's not slow. It's still a good connection.
So Jane, it is very confusing. I have a box full of cables sitting here trying to remember which version it is, and it just drives you nuts. But usually they've got the blue color in it for the USB 3, and that's really all you need to worry about. And if it's USB-C, it should work fine on your computer, but I wouldn't buy Thunderbolt cables because I probably would bet that your computer doesn't take Thunderbolt.
Probably not.
Yeah.
That was my conclusion. Or I see a Thunderbolt somewhere and I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually it will say somewhere on the computer or in the computer whether it could take it or not.
So then my question that I emailed you about, if I have to transfer 5 terabytes worth of data from one hard drive to another external hard drive, how long should I figure that's going to take?
Probably about 6 hours.
Okay. Well, that's not
or a whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Depends, as long as it's not running through too much stuff, if it's connected together, one right next to another or on the same hub. It will probably take at least a half a day to a day.
Okay.
I think you also have to be careful is make sure that your computer doesn't go into sleep mode too, I believe.
generally when it's copying, it shouldn't go into sleep mode. But it's also going to depend on the speed of the hard drives that you have. So the Costco drives are not very fast drives. They're 5700 RPM drives, which is a medium speed drive. So that will take longer than a Western Digital drive that is 7200 RPM. That can go almost, now not twice as fast, but quite a bit faster in copying over. So it's hard to know for sure how long it can take, but I always tell my customers it's going to take a half a day to a day. And
What I do,
that's hoping nothing goes wrong while it
what
copies.
I do too is sometimes it throws up an error, where it can't copy. I like to do, let's say a terabyte at a time or whatever, or 500 gig, because sometimes it might pop up an error like your file name is too big or whatever.
Yeah,
Or there might
Windows
be, or it could be
cause
also there
some
could
of
be
that problem.
a corrupt section of that. I've had that a few times too. It's like, oh, your file is corrupted. Like, oh,
Yeah. What I usually do is I have everybody try to copy it all over at once. And if that doesn't work, then I go by the sections because it gets too tricky trying to remember what's worked and what hasn't.
True.
If you can do it, if you're copying and you're in Lightroom, I usually suggest copying from one drive to another right in Lightroom. But if you're doing a backup, then I would use a program to back it up. I know there's a number of different programs out there. GoodSync would work because it actually checks to see that everything will copy correctly instead of just doing a straight drag and drop type thing.
I know they have backup hard drives. I like the backup hard drives that you basically just plug into your computer. I don't like the they got some Wi-Fi ones, and I think you can get maybe corruption that way. Not by going over the wire.
I would never do Wi-Fi on that stuff. I don't suggest people do Wi-Fi on hardly anything.
No, I agree
Even
with
doing
you.
Zoom meetings, they don't want you to be on Wi-Fi.
No, I agree with you. I think the wire is the best way to go. There's just too many problems that can occur.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, one other thing. You mentioned Backblaze. That's who I historically have always used for my backup. But when I moved over to the NAS, you can't use Backblaze Personal. You have to use their B2 service for the NAS, which is a bit more expensive. It's still competitive to like Amazon's storage prices and stuff like that, but it's definitely a lot more than their backup prices. So I started to shop around a little bit, and I ended up settling on iDrive. So I don't know if you've ever checked them out. iDrive is a competitor of theirs, and they have I think it's like a 6 and a 10 terabyte plan, something like that. But or 5, it's 5 and 10. So like 5 terabytes for $60 a year, unlimited computers. But what I found interesting with them that I literally just did all this recently, they also offer an express backup option, similar to what you mentioned for Backblaze downloading all your stuff. They sent me, you can do it once a year, they'll send you a drive, you copy all your files, you run the software thing to copy all the files, encrypt them to the hard drive, and then you mail it back to them, and then they upload it. So instead of spending another month, 3 months, whatever it takes me to upload all my terabytes, I sent them about 5 terabytes of hard drive today in the mail. So So I'll see how it works out. I don't know. We'll find out.
Backblaze does that too if you want. But,
I'm using them too.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing with a hard drive. Yeah.
Did it work well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I just bought a new computer last week, and I'm downloading a lot of that stuff right now as we speak.
Right. Cool. Yeah, it saves a lot of time if you do it. Backblaze, you buy the hard drive from them. They'll send you a hard drive. You can load everything on it and then send it back to them. And when you send it back, then they will refund that money. So it's just sort of like a security deposit to make sure they get their drives back.
I knew you could do it to pull it down. I wasn't sure if they offered it to go up.
They offer it to go up too. It's just, I don't know. I was willing to wait, and it took me to get all my drives up. I think it took me almost 6 months to get my stuff up.
That's what it took
But,
me last time to do this. So I really didn't feel like waiting
Yeah.
for that again.
Yeah.
So
One
we'll
thing
see
I
how
would
it
be a
goes.
little, one thing I'd be a little bit worried about is transportation. Is, let's say they decide to just drop your package, you know, your hard drive. It's like, well, now I don't have a backup. I wonder if that's maybe an issue.
No, I copied my files to the hard drive that I mailed. So I still have my files. My files are still sitting on my computer right now.
Correct.
This
But
is
what-
just back.
I understand that, but what's the chance of that being dropped on the way back to the facility?
The packaging is undoubtedly pretty good because heck, when I got this RAID box sent to me, I got a box with all the hard drives packed in foam shipped to me. So
The hard
odds
drive
are-
they sent me looked very similar to kind of like your Costco one. You know, it was one of those portable ones, plug it in,
Yeah.
USB cable, and it came all bubble wrapped and everything. So then all I did was repackage it up in the same bubble wrap that they sent it to me.
Okay, so it
Yeah.
had to be run over by a train, basically. So, okay, cool.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
who is that?
muted.
Muted yourself.
If you use Amazon or iCloud or those, do they compress the files?
I don't believe iCloud does. I'm not sure about Amazon. I don't think Amazon does if you're using their Glacier storage. It's just very slow upload.
Okay.
Tony, are you talking just like Amazon's like photo app?
Jeff, I
Backup
had a question
load?
about how you,
I don't know. I just, I'm looking for a temporary offsite backup place, but I don't want photos compressed. And so far, I think I emailed or did contact at Amazon, and they said, I don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to. There's so many places you can use. Yeah, Amazon. I don't think they compress them. Depends on the format you send them. If the JPEGs are automatically compressed, so that would be a problem. I know my files in Dropbox aren't compressed, and you could, dump a whole bunch in. If you wanted to pay for Dropbox. Depends really how much you want to pay to store that stuff and what service you want to use, and the speed you want to get it up there.
I use like
Thank you.
OneDrive because it comes with my Office subscription. I have a terabyte of OneDrive space, so I just use that whenever I'm like swapping photos around from social media or want to get on my phone or whatever. Like anytime I export a file out of Lightroom, I actually end up exporting it to OneDrive.
Yeah.
And then I upload it from there.
And I use iCloud, but I pay for 2 terabyte service with them.
If I didn't have Office, I'd probably use them too.
Yeah. And I have Office. I just I can't stand the way OneDrive works. So
See, I'm the opposite. iCloud and I have never meshed well. So
yeah, and
it's just personal
iCloud has limitations that then I end up using OneDrive or I end up using Dropbox. I'm actually going to go the way you are, Ian, with a NAS that's like 4 terabytes, so that I can dump both iCloud and Dropbox and just store the stuff I need to transfer like that, because Synology has a nice transfer system.
What I like about the NAS is you can also share with that. Let's say if I want to, share with you, I can set up a portion and like let's say a terabyte or 2 terabytes, you can share kind of like a server. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, I greatly underutilize it. I use it for storing my photos.
Well, that's the main reason why you're using it, for your, not for other people's benefit, for your benefit.
Yeah, they have a lot of good apps.
Yeah. Chris, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. How do you square the way you back up things with everything online and it's accessible to your computer with the danger of ransom attacks?
Well, that is probably when I talked to OWC about the RAID setup, that is one problem that really hasn't been really worked out. I don't click stuff in emails, which is how you get most of those ransom attacks. But that's also why I have my third set that's off-site storage, so that if it would happen to hit my whole RAID box, all that stuff is backed up off-site. And then hopefully I don't plug it in when I've been attacked.
I know iDrive, I just double checked. iDrive offered, it keeps 30 versions of all my files.
Right.
So if you get ransomware, they have 30 versions of it to help protect against ransomware. I think Backblaze does some versioning too, if I'm not mistaken.
Backblaze does a 30-day versioning, so that I have, so I can go backwards up to 30 days, which would be enough if I got attacked that I should be able to go back. And I almost would wonder if Backblaze and all these different companies have something to stop that ransomware as well.
The iDrive, is that only an Apple product, or can you use that with Windows in that too?
PCs, Macs, iPhones, iPads, Android devices.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
I have it on Windows.
Yeah.
I use it for Windows also, for little stuff.
Okay. Got a couple other comments. What's the feeling on SSD versus mechanical drives? I love the new SSDs because of the speed. At least they're getting down in price. But I use mechanical drives for backup because I don't trust SSDs for that. And I don't need the speed for backup. I just want a mechanical drive. At least if it would fail, I can have it recovered. SSDs, you can't.
24 terabytes of mechanical cost me $400. I can't even imagine what that would cost an SSD.
Yeah, I know my.
if in only 4 drives.
Right. Yeah, and here I've got a 1 terabyte SSD that's made by SanDisk that Costco's selling for $100. Yeah. So that's 1 terabyte. So you'd spend $2,400. And you'd have 24 drives.
Yeah, exactly. So,
although it'd be pretty small, it probably wouldn't be much bigger than 1 3.5-inch drive. But
it'd be fast as all can be too. It would be nice.
Yeah, because it's super quick. Yeah, I think we're getting there. We're getting there on that.
I just worry about reliability. It's like I've had jump drives take a crap, or even your SD cards in your cameras. It's basically the same similar aspect.
Yeah, well, I have yet to have, if you buy quality cards and quality SSD drives, I mean, SanDisk is a pretty big name, and I have yet to have one of those go bad. I have yet on my camera card drives, I can count on my hand. It's less than 5 cards that I've ever had go bad. And most of those are because I broke them in half or something. Or
keep in mind, most laptops most laptops right now are SSDs.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Modern
Same thing with my
software.
same thing with my desktop. I got 2 SD cards in there and it works out great. I mean, super fast in that.
OW makes a lot of nice 1 terabyte SSD drives that I'm using for video work, and they're small, lightweight, and they have yet to give me a problem. They will go after a while. They do have a limited life, so you do have that problem. But
we covered that at the beginning, even the mechanical ones. Yeah.
Yep, even the mechanical ones will do it. So
they got moving parts. So
yep. A good bang and you're in trouble. So I think
Jeff, we're about a half an hour out before the
this
9
became the
o'clock.
main program tonight, Jeff.
Yeah, this was just supposed to be a 15-minute tips and hints, but
A lot of great information. I mean, huge.
Yeah.
You can't.
It's a good topic.
It's an important topic. You need to be backed up one way or another, because boy, if you lose those images, you're really going to be unhappy. So
I've lost a couple drives in the past. I had things backed up, so it wasn't a problem. But
Yeah.
I've lost some drives.
Oh, I've lost a lot. Like I said, I have 20 bad hard drives sitting in a box in my office. And I've lost my first and second set, and I was on my third set of backups when I was fortunate that I had them. So
I will say, if your hard drive goes bad and it's only been within those, like, usually 2 to 3 years, depending on different hard drives have different warranties. I had a Western Digital red drive, which usually has one of the longer warranties. I had it go bad on me, and Western Digital replaced it. So don't just chuck it. You might be able to get a brand new, a new hard drive out of it.
yeah, make sure you watch the warranty.
I have a question about the, I use all SanDisk cards in my camera. And every time I get all the images off, I reformat that card. What are thoughts about that?
As long as you reformat it in the camera, you're fine.
Yes, I do.
Don't reformat it in the computer. Although I'm hearing that that's changing. But as long as you reformat it in the camera, it doesn't mess them up near as much as if you reform it in the computer.
Okay, because
But
I
they
just
should
have
last a long time.
Yeah, I just have this feeling that refreshing it, reformatting it will give me less problems in the future. Right or wrong, that's what
I reformat my card in my camera every time I go out. I always want an empty card.
I do the same
Except
thing.
you'd be amazed that you can pull all that old data off that card, even though you reformat. All you do when you're reformatting a card is erasing the directory and starting it fresh. The images themselves are still on the card. I've pulled images off of cards that are 5 or 6 years old that I thought, oh, I wonder why they're on here. But yeah. Okay.
Next topic.
So,
Black
next
and white
topic.
conversion.
Is that me too? Jeebus. Okay.
Yeah, I was getting
It's
worried
tips
about
and
that.
hints
You're
now,
going to
Jeff.
run out of energy here shortly.
Might be another 45 minutes.
All right.
He's got to shrink it down to be the tips and hints now.
Yeah. Yeah, this actually may go quicker than what we just did. So
never know, it could go in overtime.
let's see. I need the right desktop. Okay, so monochrome conversion. There's a number of different ways you can convert images to monochrome. And I'm not going to get into what images you should convert because that's a whole nother topic. I've pulled a bunch of different images that I thought might make decent monochrome images. I'm going to mainly show the different ways to do it using different plugins. The first one that I was going to show is the one that's actually in Lightroom itself. And it's as simple as hitting the black and white here under treatment, and you've converted it to black and white. Then you can do all your adjustments in here. They also have the black and white mix down here, which is what I tend to use in all of the different versions of the way I change black and white. Lightroom is the one that I use the least because it's, to me, a little harder. But what I usually look at is I can adjust these sliders, and it's usually the sky and the grass that I'm looking to adjust. And you want to look to see how much you want to pull of the sky. And if you adjust the blue setting, you can see how it changes just how the sky looks. And really not much else is changing, although you will change sea and water. And it's a matter of finding what you want. And with sky, though, you do have to remember that there are different shades of the blue. So the aqua, the blue make a difference. Sometimes purple will a little bit, not here because I don't have too much of that. So here it's the blue and the aqua. If I adjust the greens, there's not enough green stuff for it to change. Usually I look at trees and the leaves and that. And so I will adjust this back and forth to get the image to look the way that I want it to look. I will first just hit that. You could hit a preset if you wanted to. In the presets, I never even use presets, but Lightroom does have a ton of presets to get you for black and white. I'm not even sure. Here they are. So they've got for landscape and high contrast and more punch. But a lot of this stuff you can do just over in here. So I hit black and white, then I will do the same steps of adjustment. Adjust the whites so that the whites aren't blown out, although with the sun in the picture, you're gonna always have that blown out. Adjust my blacks and then my highlights. Open up my shadows. And then I can even adjust the contrast. And then I can go back and tweak it in this black and white mix if I would need to. And like I said, I mainly look to see what am I going to do with the sky? How much to the sky, how dark I want to make the sky and that. So that's how I would do it in Lightroom. Now, this would be the same as if you were working in Photoshop and using Camera Raw. So, because it's basically the same setup. I believe it would work the same way in Photoshop Elements, although I gotta admit, I don't use Elements, so I'm not up to date on how Elements works these days. Let me reset that. And what I generally, like I said, don't use Lightroom that often for it. I use different plugins, and my number one plugin is Silver Effects Pro, made by Nik, or now DxO software. I like Silver Effects. It just makes it really easy to convert to black and white. So let's let this kick up. And I always got to figure out where Nik goes. No, it's not there. It's not behind that window. I lost Nik. Well, maybe Nik didn't kick in the way it should. Huh. No, it didn't. That's interesting. Good start, Nik. I just upgraded to the newest version, so who knows, maybe I'll have problems. And I'll be really frustrated, I thought. That's weird. Where is Nik? Oh, this could be a short demo. You know, Jeff, Ewig had a problem. It might be the same thing. Yeah, there it is. That's weird. And oh, there's my problem. One thing that Silver Effects did was it wiped out all the old versions of Silver Effects. So, and when it replaced it, it did not. Give me 1 second here. I didn't check it on this computer, of course. Come on. Just need. Wow, that's crazy. I even lost my amps here.
Yeah, it's kind of hard with doing sometimes updates. Sometimes you got to redo everything from the beginning again.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird way to get to it, but there it is. Okay. So. Now it should work. That was strange. It worked the other day when I was doing black and white, so I'm sort of surprised, but. Otherwise, we'll move on from Nik to the other setups. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be working. Okay, so Nik was my first go-to one. My second go-to one is Luminar 4. Let's hope that that one's working.
I think it said Silver Effects 3 and you're clicking on Silver Effects 2.
Yeah, I just adjusted it to go to 3, but it's not even opening 3 up. So it seems that when I installed the newest update to Nik 4, it erased everything, but it didn't actually load it into Lightroom like it was supposed to. So this is Luminar. This is my other one that I use. Now they have a black and white conversion set up. Pretty much the same thing as Lightroom. You can click convert, and then you have your reds, yellows, greens, cyan, which will affect the sky somewhat, and blue. So I will go through and usually work with that. And so it does the same thing. What I like is that while I'm in this kind of stuff, I can also do a detail enhancer to be able to get things a little sharper. And then I've got all the other capabilities that Luminar would offer. And you've got, of course, the newer Luminar stuff that is coming out. But their black and white conversion, what can be nice is you can use presets. I don't know if I've got, yeah, I do have, I think, one set of monochrome presets that you can just sort of flip through to see what you like. I hate grain. Isn't it funny? Nowadays, they have all these filters to create grain. And what did we used to do when we shot film? We tried to buy the film with the least amount of grain in it. So I never understood grain. But you've got these presets that you can use. And let's see, I think there's also one other. I also tend to use sometimes photo filters. That's what Nik had that I like, and maybe what I can do is I will bring an image right into Nik from my hard drive, because that will be one way to do it. Because Nik has one section that I like quite a bit. So this works out pretty well with just their black and white conversion. You can do masks with it, which is nice if you didn't want to convert everything. So Luminar has some nice capabilities. Let me kick out of that. And the other one that I use is, let's see if it will bring that up. I doubt it. And now I've got Silver Effects working. Yeah, I don't care. So with Silver Effects, now that it works, you've got a bunch of different presets. I generally just use the classic ones or the modern ones that work pretty well. Yes, I know it replaces everything. So presets just get you started. I usually like this one. And we're going to turn that warning box off because I like to use a preset to get started. You've got your adjustments here. What I like is, where did they move it to? There's a number of things that they have that I like with it. You've got your structure so that you can bring out, the fine details. You've got adjustments. You can do some adjustments in different colors. They took away the one thing that I generally was using the most, which was the color filters. Clear view. There it is. I knew they had it somewhere. I like using color filters because this helps get you through using like the color sliders. But it's like putting a filter on the camera and you can just see the differences. And if I hit the blue, you see the most, or you can use their slider here, which works the same as the filters, but I tend to use the filters a little bit more. And then you can adjust that strength. They have a number of different things to be able to protect it. Again, you've got structure that helps bring out detail. And then you also have your brightness, highlights, midtones, shadows, and dynamic range. So you can see that you've got a lot of control. And I basically make it till I like the way it looks. just a little darker. So something like that.
I really like their control points too. They're really nice.
Oh, right. Yeah, they do have control points. Let's see. Here they are. So you could, you know, put a point in, adjust the radius of it, and then do adjustments to that as well. So Nik, to me, is still one of the nicer ones. Let's just apply that so I can get out. Then, of course, it saves it and brings it back into Lightroom. But let's grab one of these here, because this sort of shows it a little bit more. And whenever I'm doing this stuff in Lightroom, it's always making a copy from the original raw file. That way you're not wrecking the raw file and you're starting fresh. My big problem is all my raw files are pretty big files, so this generally takes a while for it to kick up. So again, I would look and I would probably grab, yeah, I don't like that one. I think the neutral one is the one that I generally start with, or the one that gets me a little more. But I generally, the first thing that I go to is the color filter. And now if you look and watch the stuff on the bike and the driver's jacket, you start here, you can just see subtle differences. If I go to the red, how the stripe on the jacket changes. And it's just subtle changes as you go through the colors. And that's something that, you know, when you're not working in just landscapes where you've got lots of different tones and you can see the blue really darkens the grass and brings out different looks to it. And then if you can adjust it just slightly to get that right contrast look. And once you get it somewhat roughly dialed in, and it really, you know, depends what you're looking for. I look at a lot of different things and I go, well, what detail do I want light and what do I want dark? And I'll slowly go through it until I find what I'm looking for. Then I can fine tune it up here with brightness, pull back my highlights if they're a little too bright, open up those midtones a little bit. And with the motorcyclist, pulling back the shadows, you can really get a nice image going. You've got some nice new features in here where you amplify the whites. I might like this a little bit. And then if I feel it's too soft, I will up the contrast some. Because really contrast is the whole thing in a monochrome image. And then I like to add structure because that just brings out more detail. And here you can adjust structure in a lot of different areas, even fine structure, although I don't want, and this is where those control points come in handy. Come on. where I wouldn't want like this grass to get like a lot of the structure in that. So if you work on some of that, you can then tone some of that stuff down. And I'm not going to go through a lot of it, but because there's a lot of different things. One nice thing too with Nik is you can do different film types. You can add grain, which I don't do. I like some of the finishing stuff. There's toning with black and white. When you think about the way black and white used to be in the old days, when we actually did it on photo paper, black and white paper was never black and white. It always had a color to it. It could be creamy. You could tone it in a number of different ways. So they have, a lot of times we selenium toned a print, which gave it a slight blue tone to it. They have different color tones. I like the sepia tone, but a really just a light amount of it, because all photo paper always had a little bit of a creamier tone. Now for motorcycles, I wouldn't do this sepia tone. I would probably end up doing a selenium tone and just something really light. And the nice part with Nik is you've got borders, you've got vignetting, all these different things. So, and you can create your own presets, which is pretty nice. And then you just hit apply. And of course it just applies it. Come on. And there it is. Now, the nice part, once it's back into Lightroom, you can do more adjustments to it if you wanted to. Sometimes, because it brings it back, even though it's a monochrome, it's a color image. So I can still drop back if I think I toned it too much, I can actually drop the saturation back. Now you can't see a lot, even if I push it way up, but I just want that toning just to be a little bit. So let's take this one and let me show another program that I use, which would be on one, and that would be in their effects. I believe it's effects. Like I said, I use Nik the most. Biggest trick is it always takes so long for it to do everything. I got to make sure that it on one's kicking up here. Boy. Okay, you get all these different plugins. The one thing you run into is that things start to slow down. And I don't think, for some reason, my on one didn't kick in. So let's try that again. Seems that that's disappeared as well. Okay, let me show you Luminar AI. Some reason I've lost the on one. I guess because I had subscriptions to a lot of this stuff, and I'm letting a lot of my subscriptions lapse. I'm not using On1 much anymore. Fortunately, Luminar is a not a subscription one. Now, I think Black Friday is over with. But
It's just starting early, that's all.
yeah, they're getting ready for the next one. So they have, again, a black and white, and it looks pretty much the same as the other one. But let me run through this, show you again. You can see with the motorcyclist easier than that first picture. See on his jacket and on the bike fenders, how just adjusting the red, you can change that to whatever you want it. And I would look at it to try to get it to stand out a little bit more. So right about here is where that red is standing out nice. Now, I believe it had, the yellow is going to affect the grass. So I can adjust how bright or dark the grass would be. The same with the green. And I sort of like to have the grass a little darker. Cyan is going to affect not much. You can see a little bit in the front of the bike and the tail end of the bike. So you can try to pick. What I do is look at to see what density do I want that color to be. And it's just a lot of very detail. Now you can see how the blue changes body parts on the bike quite a bit. So it's a matter of just going back and forth until you get that motorcycle to stand out and the different parts to stand out the way you want it to. And I don't see anything in the magenta. Magenta never seems to do too much. Now, you can also adjust the saturation, which will actually bring it back, which can be an interesting look. It's just bringing back the reds. That is fun. I haven't played with that for a while. There's one way to do spot toning. It also sort of shows you what colors you can actually affect when you're in the luminance area. So you can see all the different settings. But then with any of these, you've got structure. And with the motorcycle stuff, I would probably up the structure. Watching how much it does in the grass area here. But I do want nice, sharp, crisp shadows and good detail, even though this is a panning. Look at details, and this is going to even sharpen it a little bit more.
I wasted money. God damn.
So, and then you can go through and they have a nice enhanced accent that really brings out some nice detail in here to show the panning. And then again, I believe you can add, here you can save your template if you want to. And then when you're all done, you just end up saving it. Let's see, I always forget. The hard part is using all these different tools. I think it's just saved to disk. No, that's not it. Oh man. What'd you do to me, Luminar AI? They keep changing these things. Shouldn't be export. Well, there is a way to save it. I've actually sort of forgotten how. But so that's Luminar. I'd show you on one, but that one has expired. My subscription expired. So that one's not working. Anybody have any questions? Where am I? I know I got you guys somewhere.
Would you recommend learning one of the programs and really dig deep into it until you fully understand it and then discard the other ones?
Yeah, well, I use the different ones. Like I said, I use Nik for my black and white conversion. And for sharpening, I use Color Effects for sharpening an image and bringing out more detail.
Yeah.
Luminar I use for other things. They have a nice spotlight feature in it. And there's a couple of little things that I just use in the Luminar programs. On one I use for portraits. So I use each one of them, and I'm not doing portraits anymore. So I'm letting a lot of these subscription ones fade away. So I do, for most of my stuff, I use Nik. For a while, Nik, when they were in the process of being used by other companies, I sort of stopped using Nik and went to Luminar and On One to do the same things. But yeah, I would just pick one or two, depending on what you want to do, and learn those programs the best. For me, I sort of know each of them for just certain sections of it. And what messes me up more than anything is they keep updating them. And I haven't used some of them now for quite a while. And all of a sudden I lose how to do things. So yeah, I'm cutting back. I use Topaz for certain things. I'm using Luminar for certain things, and On One I'm pretty well dropping.
May I just sort of say that Luminar is probably not going to be supporting the program that most people have, the Luminar AI, and they're going to a new version called Neo. And Neo has some advantages from what I've seen. I have the testing version that they have out. And one of the things that I see on the testing version is I'll call it layers. It's not quite the same, but it's like when you were making adjustments, you could have used a brush over just the motorcycle, and then that would have been saved as one set of adjustments. Then you could have done some more adjustments on just the grass. That would have been saved as another set. And it looks sort of like a stack of layers that you could go back to and readjust. So if you're thinking about going to Luminar, you might want to wait for about a month and a half until that's released and see what people think about that.
Okay.
Tim, one of the blogs said they're going to keep both Luminar AI and Neo because they do something different. They're completely different programs. So that's confusing.
I think that's why I still have Luminar 4 and I have Luminar AI, and both of them have some different features in it, and they'll be around. They're not going anywhere. They're just not going to be updated anymore. Fortunately, they're licenses that I bought that are specific to those programs. On One has gone to a subscription based for all their stuff. And so I noticed that a lot of the stuff is starting to expire for me.
Jeff, it shouldn't expire. I mean, you're just not getting updates automatically if you don't have a subscription, but the old program ought to still be good.
No, I was on a subscription plan with them for On One, and found out that 2021 On One expired.
It shouldn't expire. Check your hard drive. Just make sure it's not there. I find that it's not lining up with what I read on the website. But okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I was paying extra and then it stopped. It looks like it's still working here.
Now, On One does have two separate ways of purchasing it. One is a straight out plan where you own it, and one is the subscription model that you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, they're going to a subscription from now on.
You have a choice from what I read on the website.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not how I was reading it because yeah. They were changing how they were doing things, but
website says you have a choice.
Yeah, okay. Then I must be reading it wrong because when I looked at it, they didn't have an upgrade plan. They had a subscription plan. So, but I could be wrong. Like I said, I don't use it anymore. So, because I used it for portraits. It's just for some reason, maybe it was my upgrade to Lightroom that knocked some of that out. I'm not quite sure why I can't get, why some of it's all of a sudden disappeared. But I did have problems this afternoon with Lightroom. So, yeah, for some reason, the whole on one, I've got the old suite, which really doesn't work anymore, but the new stuff is gone.
All right.
So it's hard to know.
All right. Anybody have questions regarding black and white conversion? I guess that's
going back to Luminar, the new Neo version will have everything that Luminar AI had. It will just have more new features, like he was saying, like a layer type addition and other things. They will have a new feature like power line removal, things like that. But everything you saw in Luminar AI will be in Neo.
Yeah. It might be interesting. Well, I'll have to see if we can get that one gal from Luminar to come on.
She just, as of January 1st, she just took a job with another company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, they got a number of other people there that are doing stuff. Maybe they'll come on.
Yeah, Vanelli is still with them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got to admit, I don't keep up with Luminar. I use it for a couple of little things, and I'm back to using Nik for most of my stuff. So I just downloaded the Nik 4, so I'm not even real familiar with the Nik 4. And the bad part with the way they did it with Nik is they erased the Nik 3 version that I had when they installed the Nik 4 version. And I usually keep both versions so that I can use the old one and understand how it works until I get used to the new one. But they changed how they were downloading stuff. But I like the new version. I'm not quite completely used to it yet. I gotta admit that I'm doing almost everything now just in Lightroom and Photoshop, except for using Silver Effects for Monochrome Conversion.
Jeff, are you ever playing around with the profiles or the LUTs version in Lightroom? Because Matt Kluskowski had a while back said that the person who did the black and whites in there was the guy who did the Nik software, and he actually likes what he did for these LUTs in Lightroom better than he likes what he did for Nik.
Yeah. I don't use them. No.
Okay.
I know about them, but I still like the control that I get with Nik. So yeah, I never really use those LUTs. I may go to it more as I find that I'm using Photoshop and Lightroom more. And so I don't have to keep going outside with Nik, because the one thing I do hate, and I'm actually thinking, I haven't checked it, is that it could be that Nik now can work with raw filters, raw images direct, and not converting to TIFF. I do need to check that, but reading some of the stuff when I opened it up with the TIFF file, I got the feeling they maybe are opening it up to be non-destructive as well. So I can let people know once I work with this new version.
Well, I think tonight was a great meeting, a lot of great information.
Yeah.
Well,
we're doing pretty good here time-wise.
Well, just for information, the board is meeting next week. We're trying to set the rest of the agenda for the year. So if it's been a good night, we hope to have some more good ones before the year is over.
I hope
Yeah,
so.
and if anybody has ideas for speakers, please send them to me. We'll use them sooner or later if we can get them. The hard part is getting some of these speakers, but I'm starting to see more people doing Zoom meetings, so it will make life a little easier for us to get them. And some of them aren't charging as much anymore.
All right.
So,
Competition is rough, huh?
yeah, it's actually bringing stuff down.
Also, if anybody has any ideas for topics and tips and hints, also let us know. Thank you.
Yeah. And many of the tips and hints will turn into programs like tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured it was going to be a short one, and then I expanded it a little bit. I didn't think it was going to go that far.
Well, you did well. Thank you.
Well,
yeah.
All right. Anybody have anything else before we conclude?
Well, Jeanette, I hope you had an interesting time. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. It was very informative. I guess I'm just an amateur. I just take pictures for fun. I didn't realize taking a picture is just 1/100th of getting a good picture. I didn't know I had to be a computer geek as well. So this will be fun.
All right. Well, glad you could join us.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Stupid as this sounds, if somebody didn't get a newsletter, please let me know so that we can add your name to the list and so on. Appreciate it.
I think we had a pretty good turnout this evening.
Well, good.
Let's hope it keeps on going. All right.
Yeah, we were up
Thank
to
you.
over 32, so it was pretty good turnout tonight.
All right. Well, thank you for joining
Thanks,
us
everyone.
this evening.
See you next
See
month.
you in a month. All right. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.